Great day, beautiful people. It is Jay. T's over there too, but he's going to be driving. But I'm checking in with you guys live. I am back in ATL. Wrapped up my program last week for now with the Lincoln program that I was on, serving as a co-tour manager and training a EXP to be ultimately become the tour manager for that program and us working in tandem together. So I'm on a little break for now, and then I'll be returning back to that program soon. But I wanted to check in with you guys live to not only talk briefly about my experiences there, but also answer some of your questions. So I've been getting a lot of questions in my DMs on Instagram and on my personal messages here on Facebook about compensation with regards to understanding 1099 W-2. And then also I'm gonna read a question that I got this morning and I'm gonna answer it live regarding compensation as a product specialist. So definitely stay tuned. You'll want to stay to the end and you'll want to share this video. So with everything that has happened, a lot of companies are looking at their options when it comes to compensation from a brand ambassador and just quite frankly from every position within experiential marketing. So W-2 and 1099 are the two ways in which we are paid in the experiential marketing industry at the various positions. You can either be contracted, where you can work as a contractor for an agency and either be paid, not either, but be paid as a 1099. And essentially what that means is you provide either your social security number, or if you're savvy enough to set up a LLC or a business, you work under that EIN number. When you work as a 1099 contractor, the agency on an hourly rate, let me go back for a minute. If you're working as a brand ambassador oftentimes, or even as a product specialist, you will be paid accordingly, right, for the hours or the rate or the weekly salary in which you have contractually agreed to. Now, if you are 1099 and you're working in a brand ambassador position, oftentimes you already know your rate. If you're being paid $20 an hour and you're working 8 hours and the company is paying you as a contractor, then you're going to be paid $160, a flat rate, you know, every hour or every 2 weeks, depending on how you're paid, the agency's pay schedule is set up. If you are working more so on the tour side, if you're managing programs, if you're working as a product specialist and you are a 1099 contractor, then you will have the option, especially if you're working under your EIN, if you're working under your business, to invoice that agency, you know, under your business. And at which point that agency will require you to set up your own invoice template, or they will provide a template for you to use that you will submit to accounting for your payout. Oftentimes when you're working on tour and you are using your EIN number, then you will have to itemize things like your salary, your per diem, your food per diem, and your hotel per diem when you're creating that invoice. All right, so that's more on the 1099 side. On the W-2 side or W-4 side, it's pretty much cut and dry. They take taxes out of the salary or the hourly rate wage that they have contractually agreed to have you work, and then at the end of the year, you receive a W-2 from that agency with all the taxes that have been taken out, and which you will take to your accountant. And that also works when you are a 1099 contractor. You will receive a 1099 from that agency with the total compensation, including your per diem as well, that you were compensated for when you were executing that tour or that program. Now, a couple things to note. You want to make sure, especially if you're working in any one of those positions, if you are having to expense out things, right? If you're using a company credit card or a personal credit card and you're having to expense out things like gas, or what you shouldn't have to because they have a company card, but like expenses for the tour, like like expenses for tour, like maintenance, things like may come up at a last minute's notice, or having to buy waters for the event, or having to get the vehicle towed and maybe your credit card limit has been maxed out and you go ahead and use your personal card to pay for it. Any expenses which are deemed approved by the agency that require you to use either their company credit card or your personal card, you want to make sure that at the end of the year, when you get that 1099 or W-2, they don't include that in your overall total compensation or total payout that they gave you, because those were expenses that you paid, right, to make sure that the event or the tour or the program was successful. So the agency should be working to make sure that those are deducted from your total pay with regards to compensation. Because remember, you are receiving a 1099 or W-2 based on the total wages or the total amount of compensation that you receive, not any expenses that you had to allocate for. All right, so definitely keep that in mind. The question always comes up, Jay, should I be taking more 1099 or more W-2 opportunities? You definitely want to first seek the advice of your accountant or the individual that's going to be doing your taxes, your tax preparer. It's also going to depend on your situation. If you have a regular 9 to 5 job and your job is taking out taxes, then you can afford to take on more 1099 or contractual opportunities, because you may have a situation where you working a full-time job will help offset some of the contract and the 1099 positions that you're working as an EXP. But if you don't have a regular 9 to 5 and working in the experiential marketing industry is your sole source of income, definitely look at having a mix of both. I can only speak from my experience. When I had a good mix of 1099 and W-2s, it always helped me, come tax time when I was filing my taxes. And you always want to make sure that you have someone who's familiar with contractual work. It doesn't have to be experiential marketing, because a lot of people still don't understand the industry we work in. But if they work with individuals who do Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Instacart, then they understand the gig economy in our industry, and they understand how to make sure from a tax perspective that you are able to write off and either receive the max or not have to pay back so much to the IRS. Or even if you already are a small business owner, then working with a tax professional or a CPA who is skilled in assisting small business owners or gig workers or contractors in being able to maximize their tax return or their tax liability is extremely important. Ooh, we got some stuff going on. So definitely keep that in mind. All right, let me go ahead and get to this question that I received this morning, because I want to definitely answer this before I get off my live. So the question I received is this. Hey Jay, I'm working an event 4 hours away as a product specialist. I drive up and work the same day. The event is only 3 hours and they booked me a hotel, but they're paying me a day rate of $150 when they typically pay me $25 an hour as a product specialist. Also, I'm driving up one of the show cars, not my personal car. I'm not sure if I'm getting paid or not. So the first thing I did was I crunched the numbers. When I first read it, initially I was like, ooh, product specialist, that's pretty low. Considering the standard rate in the industry, which a lot of people don't really like to talk rates when it comes to different positions in the industry. But from a product specialist standpoint, when I first saw this initially, my thought was that rate is low. If you factor in, okay, the fact that he's only working, right? He's only working 3 hours. The actual activation is only 3 hours. And they book his hotel. So that tells me that the company is covering his hotel, so he doesn't have to worry about that. But you're driving 4 hours to the actual event that you're working. So you do the math, and I did the math. You do a total of 7 hours driving up, right? I mean, not 7. You do a total of 4 hours drive and then 3 hours activation. So that's a total of 7 hours. After you do the math, you're looking at about, and let me just do my calculations again, because I like to be extra sure. So if we take that rate of $150 and we divide that by 7 hours, he's making $21 an hour. Also with this post, there's no mention of a per diem. Okay, yes, the company is covering the hotels, but how about a food per diem to help me offset some of the lack of the compensation when it comes to the actual pay that I'm making as a product specialist. So when you're looking at opportunities, especially in the product specialist position, these are questions that you have to ask. what is the daily hotel per diem? Are you going to be using a company card to expense that? What is the food per diem? You know, generally this ranges from about $35 to $55 a day. Is there a food per diem? Because if you're smart and you're able to save, you can pack your own lunch and help, you know, pocket some of that food per diem that you may be receiving. So if he was receiving, let's just factor in, right? If he's receiving that per diem, let's just say it was $45 a day. Still, on top of that, if we do the 150, and let's just say he's working, he's making $21 an hour, right? And he's working 3 days, right? And he's getting that food per diem. Yes, the amount that he's making, right, will go up, but in my opinion, that rate is pretty low. $21 an hour, and you have to factor in your time that you're driving, and then not to mention you having to drive back 4 hours. So that he's shaking his head, but that rate is pretty low. So when you're executing events, or when you're considering product specialist opportunities, you definitely have to be mindful of the per diem, right? The overall compensation, the salary allotted, or the salary that they are going to be contractually agreeing to pay you, and whether or not you're able to negotiate that as well. And you have to make sure that if you're going to be negotiating things, you put things in writing, and you state, you know, your concerns and why you are asking to negotiate a higher rate from either a compensation or salary standpoint, or even a hotel or per diem standpoint. Especially on the West Coast, and I can speak from that because I just left there, the hotels are averaging $150 to $180 a night. So if hotels are only, if agencies are only willing to give you a out-of-pocket expense of $150 a night for hotel, then you have to, you know, go back to the table and say, hey, can you give me more? Because based on the rates that I'm seeing here, the average is about $180 a night. So can we up my hotel per diem, or can you add more to my food per diem or my salary to help offset these costs? So whether you are working as a tour manager, product specialist, these are things that you definitely have to keep in mind and consider before you commit to any program, because the last thing you want to do is feel like you are being overworked and underpaid. And the agencies, you know, the top agencies in the industry, they know and they understand this. Whether or not they abide by this and they take these factors into consideration when they are bidding for these opportunities with the brands and their clients, that's another story. But it's up to you to do your due diligence as an EXP to make sure that you calculate the numbers, to make sure that it makes sense for you from a financial standpoint to be driving 4 hours. Yes, you may be using a company vehicle, but that is still your time. You are still allocating your time and you're committing to this opportunity, and then you're having to still serve as a product specialist as well, on top of probably completing event recaps or completing any additional responsibilities prior, even after executing the event. So think about your time when you're considering these opportunities. Think about the time, the requirements and the responsibilities that you may have, whether that's setting up footprint elements, whether that is reaching out to on-site contacts, whether that's making sure you reach out to brand ambassadors if you have to manage staff. All of these things are important factors to consider in any, not in any position, but more so in the management and the team lead positions. Now, if you're working as a product specialist or even a brand ambassador and then you may be traveling, then you also have to factor in your gas, if you're using your personal vehicle, if you're going to be given a hotel stipend, and if you're going to be given a food per diem. So I wish I had better news for the EXP who wrote in about that question, but those are just my thoughts. EXPs, feel free to come in and chime in the comments and let me know, what are your thoughts on this with regards to compensation? What are some of the minimums that you consider when you're looking at product specialist opportunities, and what are some of the factors that you keep in mind and you consider before accepting an opportunity, you know, whether it be a product specialist or a tour manager position. So actually heading to the gym now, I'm about to go get this workout in. I've been slipping a little bit from that standpoint, but I'm getting back on it. So you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Be safe out here executing your events, And remember, you are a brand within a brand. You're representing yourself. So make sure that you are taking necessary precautions to protect yourself, but more importantly, that you know your worth and you understand your value that you bring to any event. All right? Talk to you guys later.